Number 8. Abandoned mansion in La Huasteca. Perched ominously at the peak of a canyon in Monterrey, Mexico's Park La Huasteca, an abandoned limestone mansion blends almost seamlessly into the cliffside. It was built back in 1955 by a renowned doctor named Eduardo Aguirre Pequeño, who was famous for his contributions to the study of a rare tropical disease known as Pinta. The 3-story home was finished 5 years after construction began. In the mansion, Dr. Aguirre Pequeño injected himself with the Pinta virus to study the disease firsthand after it failed to transmit to lab animals. According to legend, the doctor's screams could be heard echoing throughout the surrounding area, suggesting that he had an incredibly unpleasant experience with the virus. Luckily, he was able to overcome the self-inflicted illness. The mansion was later abandoned during the 80s when the government seized the property through eminent domain amid a series of land reforms. There were originally plans to turn the house into a museum, but that never happened. For almost 40 years now, Dr. Aguirre Pequeño's former home has been at the mercy of nature and looters, leaving it in a dirty, decrepit state. Residents have occasionally taken upon themselves to clean up the site to the best of their ability, but many would like to see the government step in and make use of the cliffside structure in some way. Number 7. Sathorn Unique Tower. As the Thai economy boomed during the early and mid-1990s, skyscrapers started popping up throughout Bangkok and at an astonishing rate. But this rapid development suddenly stopped in 1997 when Asia was hit by a financial crisis. This caused the Thai baht's value to plummet. The money to pay for large-scale development projects quickly dried up, and in some cases buildings were left unfinished. Over a dozen incomplete ghost towers were left standing all throughout the city, serving as an unsettling reminder of just how fast the economy can go broke. The most noteworthy example of this can be seen in the 49-story Sathorn Unique Tower, a planned office building and luxury apartment complex that was about 80% finished when the crisis initially hit. Construction never continued, and today, the derelict tower remains a key fixture in the Bangkok skyline, where it stands out against other buildings since it's in noticeably worse shape than those around it. After being abandoned, the building attracted a population of squatters and stray dogs. Sathorn Unique is also rumored to be haunted by restless spirits. An alarming number of dead bodies can be found in the decrepit skyscraper, along with an unexplained collection of eerie mannequins. To stop people from breaking in, the building's owner has opened up the tower to tourists. It's unclear whether there are any plans for the high-rise in the future. Number 6. Bokor Hill Station. When colonial French forces started pushing their way into the Cambodian jungle during the early 20th century, they weren't ready for the stifling and life-threatening heat. To make conditions more bearable, they built a resort town called Bokor Hill Station in the 1920s. Situated approximately 3,438 feet above sea level in the remote mountains of Kampot province, it offered the basic amenities of an outpost along with a few luxuries, including a post office, a Catholic church, a casino, and even an upscale hotel. Building this tropical retreat came at an immense cost in human lives, though. About 900 workers passed away during the construction of Bokor Hill Station, which was surrounded on all sides by dense foliage and unforgiving terrain. The site was abandoned in the late 1940s when rebellion against French occupation broke out during the First Indochina War. It was briefly reopened as a resort in the 1960s, but deserted once again in 1972 when the Khmer Rouge took control of the region. From then until the 1990s, Bokor Hill Station was used as a stronghold for the regime. Until recently, the only path leading up to the overgrown property and its crumbling buildings was an old, beat-up road that's no longer used. Now the site can be reached easily, thanks to a highway that runs straight through the region. An investment group has since purchased the property and is now renovating it into a modern resort, complete with a golf course, several restaurants, a hospital, hotels, and more. Number 5. Bashan. On May 12, 2008, a 7.9 magnitude earthquake hit southwestern China, killing 88,000 people, injuring hundreds of thousands more, and leaving over 18,000 bodies unaccounted for. About 1/4 of the people who died lost their lives in Bashan County. 80% of Bashan's buildings were damaged, including 2 school structures that collapsed entirely. To make matters even worse, the area was rocked by powerful aftershocks that caused additional destruction and death. Bashan is located in a valley surrounded by mountains on all sides. When the earthquake struck, it caused large sections of the mountains to break, causing immediate landslides from multiple different directions. In the aftermath of the disaster, all of Bashan's inhabitants moved, leaving the city almost completely abandoned. They resettled in a newly built town about 14.3 miles away. The crumbling ruins were left untouched to memorialize the victims who never made it out of the rubble. It stayed that way for several years, eerily frozen in time while visitors came to pay respects. In 2013, a series of floods struck the region, putting the memorial site in danger of getting destroyed. The raging 23-foot-high waters also affected a newly opened museum, prompting outcries from citizens asking for the government to do more to protect the site. It might sound strange to leave the site of a tragedy as is, but the decision reflects a growing trend in recent years of memorializing a disaster by leaving the aftermath undisturbed. After the Chi-Chi earthquake struck the Taiwanese town of Taichung back in 1999, officials preserved a small section of the ruins and opened the site up as a museum. At a museum dedicated to the 1995 Kobe earthquake in Japan, there's a preserved fault trench showing the ground rupture that initially caused the disaster. And in Hebgen, Montana, the Earthquake Lake Visitor Center sits on top of a massive landslide that happened after a 7.5 magnitude earthquake in 1959. What do you think of commemorating disasters by preserving the destruction? Is it morbid, or is it an appropriate way to help people understand and appreciate the gravity of what happened? Share your thoughts in the comments below, but be sure to subscribe first. Number 4. Hao Royal Hotel. Up until the mid-1960s, the Japanese government made it extremely difficult for its citizens to travel internationally so that its expanding middle class would spend their money inside the country. But people still wanted to go on vacation. So, thanks to its own residents, the country developed a thriving tourism industry. Located 178 miles south of Tokyo within the Izu Islands archipelago, the subtropical island of Hachijojima was easy to travel to, but still felt like a world away from Japan's bustling metropolis. The government successfully promoted Hachijojima as the Hawaii of Japan, leading to an increase of visitors and rapid property development. In 1963, the Hao Royal Hotel opened its doors as the island's most upscale place to stay. Its extravagant design was based on French Baroque architecture and featured Greek statues, fancy fountains, an outdoor swimming pool, and perfectly groomed landscapes. Over the years, foreign travel became easier and more popular among Japanese citizens. Domestic destinations lost their value since vacationers instead opted to visit other countries, and Hachijojima slowly became a ghost town. The island's leadership tried to revive the tourism industry, but it was never restored back to its former glory. After undergoing multiple owners and name changes, the Hao Royal Hotel officially closed in 2003. By then, it was outdated and showing signs of its age. Since then, it has only continued to deteriorate rapidly over the years thanks to neglect and saltwater damage. What was once a well-maintained property is now a small jungle with an occasional crumbling statue or empty pool poking through the vegetation. The hotel sign is also blocked by plant life, and the stairway leading up to the entrance is covered by moss. Photos taken during a 2021 visit to the site reveal that the hotel still holds a large amount of furniture, with some parts of the building seeming to be in better shape than others. But overall, it's clear the hotel has lost its battle against the elements. It's unknown whether the authorities plan to demolish it or if the building is going to sit there indefinitely as it becomes even a bigger eyesore. Number 3. Litos. Situated in the northern Peruvian desert, the coastal town of Litos is well known among surfers as an incredible place to catch some waves. It's also a ghost town filled with abandoned military buildings, a hospital, a playground, and several Victorian-style mansions. Litos started off as a fishing town. At some point, it became a colony of the Litos Oil Field Company, which rented the land from the government. The oil giant offered its mostly American and British employees, as well as their families, upscale living conditions. But not everyone got to enjoy these luxurious amenities. Locals were banned from going into the settlement, making any existing racial and class disparities even more transparent than they were to begin with. The Peruvian government took over Litos after a military dictatorship took over in 1968. All 20,000 residents were handed eviction notices, giving them only 10 days to pack up and leave. The Peruvian army turned the empty town into a military base, using the vacant mansions to house personnel. At the time, Peru and Ecuador were caught up in a territorial dispute. Given its proximity to the border, Litos was the perfect place to establish a base. But the two countries soon reached a peace agreement, and the base was removed. After the military got out, the remaining buildings fell victim to vandals and nature. Some of the old structures have been repurposed by surfers, but for the most part, Litos is derelict and forgotten. Number 2. Palazzo Dario. In the world-renowned romantic city of Venice, Italy, there's a 500-year-old Gothic palace that's rumored to bring disaster to anyone who owns it or stays in the building for more than 20 days. Nicknamed Dario, or the House of Death, Palazo Dario boasts a long line of owners and inhabitants who died, took someone else's life, went bankrupt, or experienced some other major bout of misfortune. Built in 1479 by an aristocrat named Giovanni Dario, the palace's bad luck starts as far back as the original owner's daughter. After inheriting the property, Marietta somehow drowned in the nearby Grand Canal. Her husband Vincenzo and the couple's son were later killed. After the property owners went bankrupt only a few centuries later during the 1830s, a British scientist named Raden Brown purchased the home. Just 4 years later, Brown ran into his own financial issues. At the same time, locals started finding out about his relationship with a man, which was considered unacceptable at the time, landing Brown at the center of a massive scandal. The shunned scientist and his partner were discovered dead in the house after the weight of their problems became too much for Brown to handle. Palazzo Dario was empty during the first half of the 20th century, perhaps due to its reputation. World-famous opera singer Mario Del Monaco agreed to buy it in 1964, but he got into a car accident on his way to sign the contract, causing him to rethink his decision to purchase. He apparently made the right choice, because the house's next owners all experienced misfortune. The belief in the Palazzo Dario's curse continues today. Even local fishermen are careful not to cast their lines near the property. Some believe the curse stems from the house being built over a cemetery, which causes it to lean visibly to the right. And at number 1, corrupt cartel cops' cringeworthy mansion. Arturo El Negro Durazo Moreno served as Mexico City's corrupt police chief from 1976 to 1982. He made a measly $1,000 per month at his day job, yet he lived the luxurious lifestyle of a cartel big shot thanks to his illegal side gigs. Durazo was an active participant in the region's cocaine trade and engaged in other activities, like racketeering and extortion. He also used his position of power to get others to do his dirty work. The crooked official used his fortune to build several palaces all over Mexico. The most famous among them is a gaudy hilltop playhouse that overlooks the Pacific Ocean and the coastal city of Zihuatanejo. Durazo threw wild parties at the home, where he welcomed drugs, prostitution, and all forms of debauchery. But as they say, all good things must come to an end. The cops' degenerate lifestyle came to a screeching halt in 1982 after the inauguration of a new national president who had an anti-corruption agenda. Knowing his deeds would catch up with him, Durazo fled the country. He was captured in 1984 following a 2-year manhunt as he stepped off his private jet in Puerto Rico. Durazo's properties were neglected while he served prison time for his crimes. He was freed in 1992 after serving 6 years of a 16-year sentence and died in 2000 at the ripe old age of 76. Since then, the mansions have continued to languish. The house at Dario is watched by a caretaker, but it's clear that time has taken its toll on the once opulent columns and statues, which are now crumbling and overgrown. Visitors are allowed to look around in exchange for a small entry fee, but are warned to do so at their own risk thanks to the safety hazards of the aging site. Thanks for watching. Which of these sites would you be brave enough to visit? If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.